held as hybrid meeting with access via the council chamber or from remote location via Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the council's website to be viewed as soon as is practical following the meeting. Please could everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points for the record. The agenda can be viewed on the council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point, but I would ask that the exception of myself as a chairperson at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimize any background noise and interference and ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. Whether in the chamber or remote, if any members or officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen at the top of right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams windows, and I will come to you in order I receive the request. Please lower your hands once you have finished speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers and Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would also ask that officers introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. I will now proceed to the agenda business. Before I go on to the agenda business, I just want everybody to know
Sorry, Chair, we can't hear. You've gone on mute.
no. Otherwise it'll echo.
We can hear you again, Chair.
You can, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay, do we have any apologies for absence, please? On my list, I have Councillor Bundell, Councillor Gebby, but Councillor Gebby is here.
I am, yes, Chair. Sorry, they cancelled a meeting in Cardiff, so I'm here instead.
Thank you, Deb. Councillor Spanswick, Councillor Llewellyn Hopkins, Councillor M. Evan, and Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. Are there any other apologies, please? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item, second item, declaration of any interest, please. No? Okay, great. Can we go on to the next agenda item, please? Then approval of minutes. Can I have somebody give the accurate record, please?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you. Any seconder?
Happy to, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay. Agenda item 4 now, which is the annual report on equality in the workforce. So if I can pass over to Paul, please. Sorry, got a hand up, Councillor Ross Thomas.
Oh, thanks so much, Chair. Apologies, I'm late for this meeting. Can I just declare a personal interest, please, as I'm employed by a charity that specialises in equality, specifically on the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan, which appears in today's agenda. Thank you, and apologies for only just arriving. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I pass over to Paul now, please?
Okay, thank you. So for the purpose of the recording, my name is Paul Miles and I'm the Group Manager for Human Resources and Organisational Development. I'm presenting this annual report on equalities in the workforce of 22-23. The report has been brought to the committee each year to provide an update on data and information in regards to the Council's workforce. The information is a snapshot as at the 31st of March 23 and assists us to meet our statutory duties, obligations and obligations in relation to the Equalities Act, as well as public sector equality duty and Welsh language standards. The information on the workforce and characteristics are held in Appendix 1. And just to remind you, the information is given on a voluntary basis by employees. Whilst we like to have a full set of data, we do have to respect the wishes of employees. That being said, though, throughout the year, we continue to encourage employees to feel positive, to share information with us, which we can hold confidentially. I'll just take you now to some of the main points within the data, if I can, which is held in Appendix 1. So I think starting with headcount and gender, we continue to be female, higher female composition than male, and this has remained consistent through the last few years. The disability, there's an increase in the number of employees who've declared disability, and I think we can see that 4.3% of our total workforce have declared that. And it's really important where we continue to maintain and promote disability confidence status, which is an important aspect of what we do. Moving through to ethnic minority groups, that has slightly decreased in the workforce over the last 12 months. Schools remain the same, but I think there was a drop slightly in the corporate, with 1.6% of the total workforce being confirmed to be of an ethnic origin. Move into the age profile. Again, no real change there, and I think the graphs summarize it fairly well in terms of the workforce population. Just to mention that there's 51% between the age of 46 and 65 in the workforce. So it does go to show we are slightly top heavy in terms of our age profile. However, some specific schemes we've got in terms of growing our own have continued to be successful over recent years, with apprenticeships and graduates coming in. I think there's quite a bit of other information throughout the report, but I think just one other important part to draw attention to is the percentage of workforce declaring caring responsibility. Whilst that's slightly decreased from previous years, we are actively sort of promoting the carers' wellbeing service within the workforce, and hopefully we will have more updates on that information from people who are registered carers, which will help improve that information. Okay, so it's just that there's some of the key snapshots within the report. Obviously, there's a significant amount of data in there. So therefore, take the chair to the recommendation report, and that the information contained is noted.
Thank you, Paul. Can I invite members for any questions, please? I've got Councillor Good, first of all, and then Councillor Gebby, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Paul. Appreciate it. Just a couple of questions from me, having looked through the appendix. So if I can take members to page 16 of the appendix, which lists the age profile of our staff. I think we can all appreciate that we do have an aging workforce, and with the current pressures in terms of recruitment, I think that is something we need to be looking at. So, and I think if you tot it all up, we have about 46% of our overall workforce are over 50, which implies that for many, retirement will be an option in coming years, which I think we all have to grasp as a significant corporate risk, arguably, to the borough. So I just wondered if we could have a bit of a snapshot on what is being done by BCBC to try and recruit younger people and to encourage them to follow a career path in Bridgend, not just a sort of short-termist position, but something that they can grow and develop within our workforce, and one day maybe get to the exalted heights of Phil or
Thank you, Councillor Good. It's a good question. It's something that we discussed yesterday in the CCMB, didn't we, about recruitment and how to do it. Paul, are you?
Yeah, thank you. So recognising the challenge we have with recruitment and retention, we're looking to develop our strategic workforce plan and look at engagement, schools, colleges, further education, higher education. And I think the point you touched on is in terms of career pathways and by apprentice, graduates or trainees as well. It's not only just those things. So the intention is to work with services in key areas where we've got recruitment challenges to try and bring in individuals from those categories, and then hopefully build our workforce through that.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Councillor Good. Yeah. Councillor Gebbie, please, and then Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farr. I can't recall if Councillor Good moved the report, but I'm more than happy to second. He's asked one of the questions that I was going to pose, but I suppose what I was going to say was this is reflected in our population needs assessment. And I think it's something we need to give due consideration to, because we know that we've got an ageing workforce. I appreciate all the efforts of staff trying to recruit those who are younger, but it's something we need to give further consideration to, because we're going to have further demand on our services going forward. And I think this is reflected in our own ageing population. And the other question that I have for Paul is, whilst I appreciate the figures for our ethnic minority, I wonder if you could tell me if that actually reflects our population, or have we got a higher or lower number, please? Thank you very much, Chair.
Paul?
Yeah, I think the organisation's level is lower than that of the borough. I think what we need to recognise within that, though, that our workforce doesn't solely live within our borough as well. Whilst it represents, there is, I think, a reasonable percentage that just over 20% that reside outside the borough as well. And hopefully now, via improved reporting and opportunities for individuals to update that information, we'll have a more reflective position in future years.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Gebbie? That answered your question?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Leader.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Paul for the comprehensive report. On the section on the number of employees that have declared a disability, there's an explanation of our disability confident status, which is due for renewal this year. I just want to confirm that we'll be seeking a renewal. I think it's been a very important way of us in promoting and encouraging people with disabilities to come forward and seek employment successfully with the council, and I just wanted some more detail, if we've got any more detail about the success, because there's a reference there to that success. So more details if we've got any, and also to ask about the support, because we do provide support, don't we, to people with disabilities who come forward, very effective support actually. So I would shamelessly plug that status, the support we provide, and urge people with disabilities to come forward, because they form a very valuable part of our workforce, and disability should not and does not have to be a barrier to working for Bridgend County Borough Council. And also I wanted to ask a question around carers. So again, we know we've got a very high, as every community and borough and county does, there's a very high number of carers within the community. And so we know that there will be hundreds, possibly thousands of our workers who are carers too. And I think I've seen reference there to us having a policy for carers and doing additional work around that, because whilst we provide comprehensive support to carers in the community, it's a different level of support that potentially we need to offer to members of the community who also work for us. And I know we've made some strides around that, but what more can we do to support those carers who work for us, please, Chair? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so if I just pick up on the disability point first, Leader. On our council recruitment landing page, we reference the support for applicants with disability and the guaranteed interview scheme. That's proved successful, and having seen some of the data, we're clearly aware that people take advantage of that in order to gain opportunity within the organisation. The part with regards to carers, I think we've continued to issue more communications promoting and supporting carers within the organisation, and last September onwards, a new carer staff group has been formed and starting to meet as part of our well-being, wider well-being aspect. So, I think they're looking at the development of a new carers policy going forward. So having carers part of that group is really important, then, that they contribute to where we go as an organisation.
Thank you, Paul. Rita, you happy with that?
Yeah, that's really encouraging that carers are part of shaping that policy, and I'm sure once that policy has been formed, we'll want to promote that policy, because our experience certainly with carers in our communities is, unfortunately, most carers don't even unpaid carers don't even recognise themselves as being carers, and that can be quite often the biggest challenge to supporting those carers, and no doubt that will be the same for carers within the workforce. And we would urge anyone working for the authority that do provide unpaid care to other people to come forward, because we will want to provide as much support as we can to you as a carer. That is already reflected in a lot of our policies, but obviously we need to know about people's individual circumstances to support that. We've got a duty around that, and we will discharge that duty. So thank you, Chair, and thank you to Paul.
Leader, can I bring Councillor Wayne Stanley in, please?
Hello. I wanted to clarify a couple of things and also comment on something. So first of all, I wanted to clarify what percentage of the workforce actually have completed this information, so how accurate it is. The second thing I wanted to comment on was that the number of Welsh language learners who said that they've got a little bit of language seemed very low at 25%, because that would be just being able to say Bore Da. And perhaps people don't realise just how much language they already have. And perhaps we need to encourage a more accurate assessment of where they're at, which also leads into what we've been saying about the carers as well. I sometimes recognise that I'm a carer and sometimes I don't. And I'm sure that's the case for many people. I know that my primary work has a very generous special leave and emergency leave policy, which helps me in my caring responsibilities. I'm sure that BCBC would have something similar, and it might be worth just checking that is the case and making sure that everybody in the workforce is aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Paul, can I bring you back in?
Okay, so I think if I pick up the first part of the question is about sort of completion rate and what we see. So obviously, gender and age, we have 100% completion rate. That's information we have to hold within our system. Everything else is voluntary in terms of what is completed by the employee. So I think you can see within various data sets within the report, you can see the element, or I suppose if you turn it the other way, we've only recorded what we have, so therefore the other information hasn't been provided. What we are looking to do and what we continue to do is promote our employee self-service platform. And within that, there's a sensitive information section where employees have the opportunity to update their information. So we are continuing with that, and we're looking at some options further down the field where we can roll that out to all employees, not just those who are sat in front of a computer, and that should help improve then the data capture going forward then.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Good, did you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was trying to be generous and not ask all my questions at once because I'm nice like that. Just to pick up a little point there that Paul just made, I would just like to sort of flag that we collect biological sex, not gender. And I think that is something we should reflect upon. And I think just because this shows that there's a binary choice of male and female, that may not actually be the case. And I think that is something we should probably be looking at going forward. And just to raise a point as well with Councillor Winstanley, I think on the Welsh language thing, I think this is something we've seen across the public sector in terms of how people identify as Welsh speakers, much to the upset, I might add, to the Minister for Welsh Language, who got his census results a few months ago, and I think was a bit dismayed at the number of people who actually identified as Welsh language learners or speakers. And I think we do all accept that it is being lowballed, because I think the majority of us actually do know, as you say, more Welsh than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that is something we should reflect upon. But to get to my actual substantive question, I just wanted to sort of check really on so page 18, which is around LGBTQ employees and sexual orientation. And I just wanted to check in really on what we're doing as an authority to ensure that our workplace is as inclusive as possible, that people are able to come to work and feel confident in being open and proud about who they are, and also to ask what is being done to make sure that those voices and lived experiences of members who do identify as LGBTQ are being reflected, and their suggestions being taken forward when they do have concerns or suggestions on how to make a more inclusive workplace. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Are you going to take that one, Paul, or?
So a couple of points raised there. One point I probably didn't emphasize well enough in the previous question, but just to bring in that data is captured when employees enter the organisation, and the work we're doing is continue to update that information, because some positions may change in relation to Welsh language or a number of things. So that's sort of work ongoing. So just to be clear on that point, I think we've been working with colleagues to bring in new features within the system, so we can record information on gender identification. And our intention is to roll that out within this next financial year. Back to my point, whilst we'll capture that for new starters, we have a gulf then with the existing workforce. So, even though we bring it in, we still have that challenge on. I think the point that was being made about data capture, we've got to do some good work on that, but that aligns with some wider work anyway. So just to reference that. One second. So the LGBTQ question really is, I think we're an organisation that treats all employees with respect, and we've got to ensure that all groups have a voice and have opportunity within the workforce. And council with colleagues in other departments, working with other local authorities to address these issues and make sure that we're positively acknowledged for the diversity within our organisation, and we continue to support that, and through our wellbeing groups as well, which is what we've been very active in the last sort of 12-18 months in promoting, that where it's support need, case studies or any information is brought forward, we're there to actively support.
Thank you, Paul. Are you happy with that, Councillor Good?
Could I just come back on?
Of course you can.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's really positive here. I think and I know Zoe and I have talked about this previously, I think what we do need to be looking at is how we do create structures within BCBC, not just for LGBTQ people, but for people of all diverse and inclusive groups, including carers, disability, etc. Whether there is working groups or staff committees or whatever you want to call them, that allows that sort of slightly formal but informal conversation to happen, but also allows that socialization of staff as well, that builds that confidence. And I think that is really important. I'd hope that we as an authority can look at that. I just wanted to come back on one other piece. So obviously you mentioned, Paul, that we capture the biological sex of employees as they are employed, presumably through identity checks, etc. But I just wondered what the local authority is doing to support anyone who is a current member of staff who might be transitioning. And if, I don't think this is a forum where we should discuss whether someone is transitioning or not within the borough, but I just wondered if there was any processes in place to make sure that those people's change in circumstances are respected and supported as an employer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Good. You raise a very, very valid point, really. Paul?
So just picking up on the 2 points, I think the point about structures and groups and stuff is something we'll take away, work with colleagues and other teams, because not just HR, this needs to be a wider piece of work. So yeah, absolutely, we'll take that away. And then I think the second question, as an organisation, we will support any employee going through any form of transition or anything they need, and support is available from HR and has been available, okay, for employees where this need has come forward, and when identified, there is support available.
Thank you, Paul. Just some points from me, if that's okay. Funny, you said that, Councillor Good. I've been speaking to Phil and Zoe about having some kind of support group for people who identify with various things, so that there is a safe place for them, that they can talk about issues, whether it's in work issues or in the community. I know Councillor Gebby was involved very much in setting up a group in another local authority that's functioning really, really well. It took about 12 months to 18 months, but like I said, Councillor Gebby was very, very involved in that. I'm really pleased to see that we're having more people identify themselves as being disabled. I think that that's really encouraging that they feel safe enough to do that, and I'm hopeful that they are HR policy with with unions to support people in work. Sorry. To support people in work with reasonable adjustment.
Would you like to declare an interest there, Chair?
Sorry, I should have said. Yeah, I meant unions because there are lots of unions here. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see that, and that hopefully we'll work with various unions to make sure there's policy that fits for purpose. Like you said about involving carers in developing policies, I think it's important that we involve people with disability, LGBT plus, that they're involved in designing policy. And I think if we had these work support groups for people, they could get involved in that. That's really encouraging. I'm also thank you to the team, because I did raise the question when the report came to me about the fact we have stats for women who go on maternity leave, but we don't have any stats about men going on paternity leave, because there are times when women may return to work and the men will take longer term periods. So I'm really pleased you've included that stats in there. Thank you very, very much. I think that's it from me. I think Councillor Good has moved the report and Councillor Gebbie have seconded. If there are no,
I don't think I actually did move the report, Chair, but I'm happy to move the report.
Chair, you've been muted again.
sorry, Councillor Gebbie, thank you for letting me know. So, are we all in agreement with the recommendations?
Aye.
Yes,
Thank you very, very much. And Paul, I understand you have another meeting to attend. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Okay, we'll move on to the next report, which is on Equality Impact Assessments Annual Review. Can I pass over to Zoe Edward, please?
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, my name is Zoe Edwards and I'm the Consultation, Engagement and Equalities Manager. I just remembered I need to do my camera. So yes, the report for the Equality Impact Assessments is the annual review for the period from March 22 to April 23. So just to go through a few of the key points. So the purpose of the report is to provide committee members with an annual update on the Council's requirement to undertake equality impact assessments. So it provides an overview of the Council's approach and an outline of any EIAs that we've undertaken. So the Equality Act sets out both general and specific duties for local authorities in Wales, one of which relates to assessing the impact of policies and practices, which is obviously the purpose of the EIA process. These reports and assessments, they have to set out particular areas of purpose of the policy, the practice being assessed, summary of the steps taken, etc. So just an overview of the EIA is a tool to assess whether new or changes to existing policies, services or functions, or the removal of such services could impact on different sectors of society in different ways. So it helps us make better decisions, identify how services can be more accessible or improved, and consider the 9 protected characteristics, as well as the impact on the Welsh language. So the EIA toolkit was revised in readiness for the implementation of the socioeconomic duty in March 22. We currently have the EIA training still being delivered in the authority. The e-learning module continues to be available to employees, which gives an overview of EIAs, their role in improving services and how to conduct them. So we've got the figures in the in the tables below, I think the sort of the main completion numbers are all outlined in those. So overall, 289 council employees have completed the EIA e-learning module to date. So between April 22 and March 23, 4 full EIAs were undertaken and accompanied cabinet reports, and these are listed in Appendix 1. 62 EIA screenings were undertaken during this period, and they are listed in Appendix 2. So those are the main updates on the EIAs. So if I could just take Cabinet Committee Equalities to note the progress made during 2022-2023 in the completion of the equality impact assessments and any progress made with training. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe, for presenting the report. I'm going to call on the members now for questions. Got Councillor Good first, and then Councillor Gebby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Zoe, for the report. Happy to move it before I forget and the Dep shouts at me. I also have a faster finger than the Dep today, which I'm really pleased about. So I just had a couple of questions around this. I think it's really positive that we do have over 250 employees now who have completed the training. I think it is really important. I just wanted to check, though, initially, if are employees who haven't completed the training able to assess whether reports require full assessments? Because I just wanted to check whether that was the case, because I presume that you would have to complete that course before you would be allowed to make that judgment.
Yes, just to answer that, the answer is yes, you would need to have completed the training. Yeah, there is a comprehensive toolkit online which provides support and advice to all staff members, but yeah, it would be staff who completed the training.
Great, thank you for that,
Thank
Zoe.
you.
And I just wanted to check as well, because obviously we do also have an assessment on our reports for the Future Generations Act, and I wonder if there'd been any thought given working with the Commissioner of the Future Generations, Commissioner for Future Generations, is that his title? Which myself and the leader met with already last week, and we were discussing with their office how better they could support local authority, because I think we all accept that while the Future Generations Act is an amazing piece of legislation, the support from the office to actually embed the sort of wants of the Future Generations Act have somewhat been lacking. And I was just wondering if there was any consideration of working with them to maybe develop a training module similar to the EIA that focuses more on the 7 aims of the future Wellbeing of Future Generations Act.
Zoe? Bill, you're going to answer this one. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Good. We haven't had any considerations made to looking at how we can link that, but that's something which we'll definitely take away from today. Look at what we can do and see how we can improve on that.
Thank you for that, Phil. I think, you know, with the new commissioner coming in as well, it seems like a good opportunity. And I think, you know, Derek Walker, who is the new commissioner, is very keen, perhaps more so than the previous commissioner, who I won't pass any comment on. But, you know, he seems very willing to want to work very closely and do that sort of next step of the act to make sure that it is embedded. So I'm sure they would be open to those conversations.
I mean, we've always renewed the EIA process. So we've included on the socio-economic duty. We've looked at the Welsh language to embed all that into one document. So by all means, we'll take that away and look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Good. And Phil, can I bring Councillor Gebby in, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me just put my hand down. And I don't shout, Councillor Good. I think that's the wrong impression to give of me, if I'm really honest. Zoe, thank you very much for the report. And I've done equality impact assessment training previously, and I've written risk assessments and stuff, so I understand the value to them. I think what would be helpful to the committee, however, is We often get criticised as a council about our consultation and engagement, and I think it would be useful to understand how everybody's input into any consultation informs the equality impact assessment at the end, you know, with all the comments that are made by general members of the public. So I think it would be useful to understand how that is integrated into the consultation reports at the end, because that's why we do them, is to understand a wider implication for our communities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Deb. Anybody want to come back?
Thank you, Councillor Gebby. I suppose the main point would be that we have currently had to develop an engagement and participation strategy for BCBC. So, like you say, engaging with the public and how we do this effectively, and also how we keep that communication going. So that's something that is currently being incorporated into that strategy. So we'll be promoting that and yeah, shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Yeah. Can I bring the leader in, please?
Thanks, Chair, and it's pleasing to see the progress we've made over the years in terms of measuring the impact of the decisions that we have to make it as a council. I wanted though to just make the point that it sometimes feels as if we're looking at it through the lens of, are we going to have a negative impact or not? And we don't always look at it through the lens of, are we making a positive impact? And that needs to be recognised. So I've noted that, and obviously we absolutely need to recognise where there is a potential negative impact, and that has to be part of our decision-making process. But it is just as important that we recognise where we're making advancements and advancing equality of opportunity, for example. So I'm looking at page 33, and we've got 3 reports there that I think everyone would accept as actually advancing equality of opportunity. So that's around the proposal to extend Heronsbridge School and the proposal to open new learning resource centres at Ysgol Cynoed Sant and Tremaines Primary School for people with additional learning needs. So I just think we in the future will need to try and work with different services so that is fully reflected, because that's an important part of the decision-making process as well, isn't it, in terms of recognising the proposed positive steps forward. That's my point stroke. I'll make it into a question, so it's not just a point, but should we consider that more broadly in our in those equality impact assessments, please?
Thank you, leader. Yes, of course, Phil.
Absolutely, leader. And as part of the EAA process, we actually identify those process changes, whether it is a positive impact as well as a negative. So maybe something we can take away again after today to look at maybe improving the future reports. So because not only seeing how many EAAs have been completed, but how many of those EAAs had a negative impact compared to a positive as well.
Thank you for that. I think that's a really good point, isn't it? We do tend to look at the negative stuff rather than the positive, and there are so many positive things. I'm going to bring Councillor Gebby in now next, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I just omitted to second the report, and I'm happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. That's really helpful. Just one question from me. You've mentioned training of staff. Is the training for anybody who wants to do it, or is it targeted at managers and senior staff, please?
Thank you, Chair. It is targeted, well, it's not targeted specifically for managers. It is for all staff. We do tend to see that it is managers that undertake the training, but it is aimed at all staff.
Thank you, Zoe. So just to go back to what Councillor Good asked, so we use a toolkit to screen the reports or actions that needs to be done?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And that's on our internal internet. So all the information is there along with guidance and support. And we've also got on my team, we have got an equalities officer who can provide advice on any sort of further details of going through the assessments themselves.
I'm going to ask another question, sorry. So do you know if there's a disagreement, a dispute about something that, you know, somebody has screened, but somebody else says no, this, what would happen then? Have you had an occasion where there has been a disagreement about something?
I haven't come across this scenario. I think because the assessment is so detailed in the questions, I can't imagine there'd be a scenario. Not saying there wouldn't be, but yeah, we haven't come across anything yet, have we?
It is up to the individual service areas. I'd say that the screening form is quite descriptive. So based on the answers, it form will then tell the person whether or not it needs to be screened out and needs to be taken on to the next stage, which is the full impact EIA. So so I say it, so really it's the EIA, it's the service areas who would determine those responses.
Great.
And again, when they go back after following consultation, they get the feedback information from that consultation, and then based on that, they should be writing back to the cabinet undertaking a further EIA based on the consultation responses as well. So
great, thank you. So there were a couple of action points for us to take back. Okay, you've noted that, Phil. That's great. So can I take members to the recommendation, and can we have an approval? Great, thank you very, very much. Let me just go through my paperwork now, see what we've got next. So the next agenda item we have is the annual Welsh Standard Review. Am I passing that to you, Zoe, or to Phil?
Yeah, that would be
For you
me.
to present.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to inform Cabinet Committee on the content and the approach taken to the Council's Welsh language standards. So the Welsh language standards give Welsh speakers improved enforceable rights in relation to Welsh language. The Council received its final compliance notice on the 30th of September 2015, which outlined 171 standards that we were required to comply with. So we now have to produce and publish an annual report in Welsh, and that needs to be done by the 30th of June each year. And we do publish that on the website. And so the Council's Welsh Language Standards annual report covers the period from April 22 to March 23. So again, this year was published as required, and the report is attached as Appendix 1 in Welsh or Appendix 2 in English. The report outlines how the Council has complied with the standards under the duty and during the period, and also documents any progress and new compliance developments during this time. So as part of the annual report, there is a duty on us to report specifically on the following information: the number of complaints received to the Council during this period, the number of employees who disclosed Welsh language skills, the number of employees attending training courses offered in Welsh, and the number of new and vacant posts advertised during this period. So in addition to the information specified in section 4.2, updates on equality impact assessments, customer contact and promotional activities have also been included in the report. That's it.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
Thank you.
I'm going to open up to members for any questions. Leader?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to formally move the report and note the continued progress that we make in this respect. And of course, we will be receiving, and we continue to receive further reports
on the much wider context of the progress we're making around the development of the Welsh language in the county borough. And I was pleased with Zoe to be at the recent Little Welsh Festival and with the group manager as well at Bringarrow Park, and that was a very successful day and an example of how we're working together with organisations like Mentor Iaith Bro to promote the use of Welsh language, celebrate the Welsh language, and we worked very effectively. And sorry, I'm going to have to make Councillor Winstanley declare an interest now. We worked very effectively with our Arwen Cultural Trust on that festival, and let's hope it's an even bigger and better festival next year as well.
Definitely, yes, and bringing the schools in as well, the Welsh medium schools. Obviously, they took part and had some performances, which was lovely to see. So yeah, like you say, it's great to support and celebrate the culture of Welsh as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd take this opportunity. You've seen as Councillor Bundell isn't here, to also reflect that we have had a lot of success very recently within the borough from our Welsh language schools. Ysgol Gavin Gymraeg Llanganoed, thank you, leader. Shows I need to work on my Welsh language standards, I think. Has had an awful lot of success, and so has their head teacher, who's been recognised as one of the best head teachers in Wales, and I think the UK, right? The world, I'm sure. You know, and I think we should reflect upon that. I think it is a really positive thing. I will also be deputising tomorrow, in fact, for Councillor Bundell, and attending one of our Welsh language primary schools along with the Minister for Welsh Language and Education, where I hope we can have a really positive visit and a good discussion about what we are doing across the borough to encourage parents to send children to Welsh schools, to encourage parents to learn Welsh as well, and to show that we are really committed to the Welsh language agenda from the Welsh Government. Thank you, Chair.
And did you say you were seconding the report?
Oh, go on then. I'll second the report.
Leader, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I have to echo Councillor Good's comments about YGG Llanganoed, because it really is a unique inspection report by Estyn. This is the first Welsh medium secondary school in the whole country to have an inspection where there were no recommendations in terms of weaknesses or areas to develop, and the only school that where it has been invited to provide 2 case studies of best practice. And I think that is an extraordinary achievement, and it's a recognition of the unique spirit and the efforts, the incredible efforts of governors, pupils, parents, carers, and of course the head teacher and staff at the school. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the report, Zoe. Just one question from me. Do staff get time off to attend the Welsh training?
Yes, they do. Yeah, we do. There are courses run both internally and externally, which they would get the time off to complete those.
Sorry, I should have said paid time off.
I think so. I guess it's within their working day. Yeah, it would be considered as part of the working day. Sorry.
The other thing comes so far, we would also, so sometimes if we can't offer the relevant course to them, they may go to colleges and things outside time. So we would also support them in terms of funding if needed as well.
Thank you. Councillor Good, did you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add, because I think I said this last year when we had this report, but I would just flag to all the members in the meeting and all the members across the council that these training courses are available to elected members. I fully encourage members to take part. I think, you know, we as elected members would be far better off if we had more Welsh speakers. I think we have a deficit of Welsh speakers within our elected members. I know certainly, unfortunately, due to the leader putting me in cabinet, I haven't had enough time to learn Welsh. So it's his fault, really. But I fully encourage members, if they do have a little bit of spare time, to sign up. They can all be done through Democratic Services, you know, and they are a really good course. In the few weeks I actually managed to find time to attend a course at one point, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Okay, can I take members to the recommendation, please, and approval? All in agreement?
Aye.
Thank you very, very much. We move to the next agenda item now, which is the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan Update Report. And is that going to be you, Kirsty, please? Thank you.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. Bore da pawb. So for the purpose of the recording, I'm Kirsty Williams and I'm the Partnership and Community Safety Partnership Manager for Bridgend. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet Committee Equalities an update on the work underway and being considered to deliver the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan for Bridgend County Borough Council. On the 7th of June 2022, Welsh Government published the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan, which set out the intention to be an anti-racist nation by 2030. The focus of the plan is on the changes we wish to collectively make to people's experiences of racism in 6 different aspects of their lives. They covered in the report, but they cover their experience of racism in everyday life, their experience of racism when experiencing services delivery, their experience of being part of the workplace, experience in gaining jobs and opportunities, experience when they lack visible role models in positions of power, and their experience of racism as a refugee or as an asylum seeker. We had here that there was an intention to have implementation leads to deliver against the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. However, we've heard nothing more about the recruitment. So in the absence of these implementation leads, the Community Safety Partnership in Bridgend have worked with Equalities and the Regional Community Cohesion Officer for Western Bay to discuss how we as a council can deliver against the plan. These discussions have focused on the need for communication and the involvement of staff from different ethnic minority communities in considering our design approach to delivering the plan. It's our intention to use existing networks and forums as well as establishing new ones to address gaps, to engage with staff and hear their experiences. So that's very much in keeping with the discussions we've been hearing this morning. We understand from conversations that in some of the local authorities, such as Cardiff and Swansea, the Equalities leads have reviewed the plan and apportioned sections of the plan to the relevant departments, such as education, social care, employability and skills. Their equality officers are currently acting as the holding point for the plan until further guidance is provided, and we'll be looking to take a similar approach once there's clarification on the implementation of the plan and the delivery expectations. That's not to say that we're not doing anything at the moment. One of the ways in which Bridgend is leading the way is in delivering against the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan is through the development of an app that can be used for reporting and monitoring the use of hateful and/or extremist images, graffiti, and stickering. Bridgend County Borough Council, working alongside Swansea University, were successful in applying for funding through Welsh Government's Smart Partnership Scheme. The app is a working title of Street Snap, and a research assistant has recently been employed to support the development. This app is a pilot and is being developed with a view to be rolled out nationally. It's a very exciting development. We're still very much in the early stages, but I look forward to being able to update you all as we move that forward. And then just referring back to the report, there's no impact on climate change, safeguarding or financial implications to the report. So we recommend that Cabinet Committee Equalities note the content of this update report. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'm going to bring Councillor Gebbie in and then Councillor Good.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Kirsty. That's really, really helpful. I think the comment that I'd like to make is sometimes we write these policies with every good intention, and I would ask how we have anybody who is considered affected by this, how anybody with the lived experience, I want to say, is implementing into our policy and decision making, because as a council we have 800 plus services, and we all know that we've learnt from history sometimes about what needs to be developed and what things need to be reviewed, and it's a piece of work that I've been involved in previously. So there were various pitfalls that I found when I was doing that piece of work, and it was actually highlighted by someone with that lived experience. I do think we need to involve our trade unions significantly in this, because they've been managing this piece of work for a long time. Indeed, I know that the trade unions are instrumental in the development of policy at Welsh Government. So it's just a comment really, Chair, more than anything else, and I'm more than happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Gebbie. I mean, it is something we've spoke about, isn't it, Kirsty? How do we get this action plan designed and up and running so it is a real living document? We spoke about linking in with other agencies that have that can support us, those agencies that have got lived experience. So I'll bring Councillor Good in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kirsty, for taking us through the report, and I'm happy to second the report as well. I think the one thing that occurs to me, and I was reading through the anti-racism plan the other morning, and I think for anyone who's spent quite a lot of time, sadly, like I have, reading the action plans from Welsh Government in various topics, the anti-racism action plan seems to have very few defined actions and is very much a sort of nebulous document that doesn't really define action. And as such, I think my view would be that, as we've sort of discussed in terms of grants as well coming from Welsh Government, that sometimes we can be a bit risk averse as an authority. And from my point of view, I think we would probably be better off ploughing ahead with actions on this. So I would encourage officers to be looking at finding those leads within directorates and pushing forward this work, because my feeling is that it's likely that this won't quickly have clarification from Welsh Government, and that actually, you know, that just because Welsh Government have done this action plan doesn't mean that we need to sort of sit on our laurels and wait for their advice. I think we should be ploughing ahead as an authority to make sure that these changes are made and that action is taken to make sure that we, if not as a whole nation, but as a borough, have zero tolerance for racism and stamping out anything like that. So I just wanted to put that on record. The other thing I would just like to ask is to inquire as to what work we're doing as a local authority with other groups and parties such as the RPB, the PSB, Arwen and Cadw, for example, because I think it's mentioned in the anti-racism report the importance of working with cultural organisations as well to make sure that when we are talking about Welsh heritage, it isn't through a simple lens of white miners essentially, but that actually Wales has a very diverse history and that needs to be reflected more. So it'd be really good to understand how we are working with those organisations to develop our policies and service delivery to make sure that everyone in this borough, when they do, attend, say, an Arwen library, or they come to speak to us at the Civic, have a similar experience and an understanding of a diverse culture and background. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Before I bring Kirsty in, it is something we also spoke about earlier on, didn't we, Councillor Good, about maybe at these equality committees, we should maybe have speakers coming in to talk about various equality issues so that we get, we learn a bit more from them about the lived experience, like Councillor Gebbie mentioned. Did you want to respond to Councillor Good, please?
Thank you, Councillor Good. Excellent points. I think to answer the question about how we're linked in with other partnerships in the region. That's one of the reasons why in Bridgend it doesn't just sit with Equalities, it sits under me and my community safety partnership and also the Public Services Board. So we are making those links as best as we can, and that we are working with the Regional Partnership Board, as Councillor Gabby can attest, and where they've got a co-production officer and engagement officer, we're trying to draw on all those resources across the borough so that we are attempting to co-produce. We're not going to get it right, but I think we are on a journey, and there is a real intention to bring more lived experiences, citizens' voice, however you want to term it, to make sure that we're not delivering services to people, we're working with people, and that all our service design is trying to reflect that. So whilst it's potentially quite informally and it is based on officers and relationships rather than a set structure, those conversations are happening, and we really are committing to designing services in as co-produced a manner as we possibly can at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Are you happy with that, Councillor Good? Yep. Can I bring Councillor Elaine Whistler in, please?
Thank you. I'm sure I need to declare an interest now because Arwen and the libraries have been mentioned a couple of times there. So I will declare that I am a member, employee of Arwen Cultural Trust and a manager with the library service. One of the things that we've been rolling out as a cultural trust to all our staff is a mandatory racial awareness training, which I was able to attend. And that was really, really useful on just showing how things can be racist, but you don't necessarily realise that. And that was really, really helpful. So I'd recommend similar training to be rolled out with Bridgend County Council staff. But I also wanted to bring in a point about the cultural thing with the new curriculum in schools. There's very much an emphasis now on looking at Black minority ethnic history as well. And obviously, you mentioned the miners. That obviously brings us to the pavilion and the history we've got with Paul Robeson. And obviously making sure that children and older people are aware of that history and how proud we are of that history, and that people can be discriminated against on a number of ways. For example, the miners were, but also Paul Robeson was, and how that created a unity of theme there. And I think that's a really important story to get out, which obviously we've been involved in doing as well. I think that's it, but yeah, I just wanted to make those points. Thanks.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to anything in that, Kirsty? No. I mean, it is something else that I've raised with officers. You know, we've got lots of historical events that goes on throughout the year. We've got, like you've mentioned, Paul Robinson. We've got the Black History Month. We've also got the abolition of Slavery Day. So I think it's important, you know, how do we as an organisation ensure that we kind of on those special days that we are raising the awareness, maybe having a stall in the foyer, but it doesn't mean to say it's us that we do that. We can link in with other agencies to come and do that. Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Good and then the leader, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to sort of touch on a point. I think Councillor Winstanley has sort of started to make this point, is that one thing that it seems to me is extremely important in this and all the other action plans that have come from Welsh Government is that we recognise intersectionality in this work. So, you know, someone who is facing racism could also be a mother with childcare responsibilities, could be a LGBT person, and many other, you know, disabled, etc., etc. And I think, and this is where I think it is key, Chair, that we do have those expert voices coming to speak to this committee, because, you know, this is the forum that we should be hearing that, and that we should be listening to their lived experience and making sure that, you know, because often, as Councillor Winstanley says, you can deal with one part of an issue without seeing that actually there's a wider context to it that can really make an impact, and that we have to make sure that we get that right. But just on that point, I would just like to note that Welsh Government also in, I think, March, released the LGBTQ action plan, and I would really appreciate it, Chair, if we could have a similar update to the next committee of CC just on the actions that we are taking to implement the LGBTQ action plan, because I think that is very important. And actually, the LGBTQ action plan does give quite concrete aims and actions for public bodies to take. And I think it would be really worthwhile us having that as a report, but then also maybe having a review of all of the different reports and action plans we have coming from Welsh Government, and then looking at it from an intersectional lens of how that all comes together to drive forward equalities within the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Some really, really valid points and lots of work for Phil's team to take forward. Councillor Good did warn me about this.
I could just to let you know as well, this year we are looking as well as establishing a group within the council, pulling in colleagues across the range of directorates, because we need to start looking at developing our next strategic equality plan as well. So, and then following that, next year we'll be looking at a proper delivery plan, and looking at how we can pull some of those actions together to have an overview of more issues rather than just focus on one specific, really.
Thank you, Phil. I think, it is a good point you've made, because for me, equalities should be the heart of everything that we do, not just a side thing or we've ticked that box. So it should be in everything that we do. And it's good that you're going to draw in other directors to get involved in that action plan. Thank you. I'll bring the leader in now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly support the suggestion, indeed proposal of Councillor Good, if it is a proposal, I think it is, that we start that work now about identifying leads within the local authority, because even if, or when I should say, not if, I'm sure they will identify those leads, the reality is that they will be regional or national leads. The action is almost always required at a local level, isn't it? So they might identify a regional lead that is in another organisation, but we will have work to do locally. And we can see from activity like the development of the app, the work we do, show racism, the red card, there's already work underway, and I think now's a time to try and identify the right individuals within different directorates who can start this work straight away. And I think it's important, and also it may be an opportunity for us to help shape the action plan as well, because we might want to nominate a potential regional lead, for example, and we'll want to help influence that plan, and not be a plan that is simply developed at a high strategic national level, when we've got a lot of experience and a lot of skills and expertise that we can contribute to this, as well as, of course, learning from other organisations, and always looking to do better, because we recognise that we've got a very long way to go on this. And I think the sooner we start that work, the better. And like I say, I want to recognise that a lot of work is going on already, but it's about structuring that and identifying some of those leads, not just at a corporate level, but within the directorates, because again, recognising that this isn't a job for one individual, is it? Far from it. As we've seen earlier, we've got over 6,000 posts within the organisation, so it really will require a one council approach to make the progress that we all want to see in this area. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Did anybody want to make any comments on that? I know Paul's gone now, just questions come to my head, so maybe we can take it back to him. Do we know how many Black and ethnically minority staff we've got in kind of senior management post? And this is something we discussed in the office this morning. I'm not aware of anybody, so could we go back to Paul and ask, do we have stats of those? And if we don't have any Black people in senior position, is there a reason why we don't have that? And what are we doing to encourage people from diversity to apply for these senior positions? Councillor Good, I can see you wanted to come.
Sorry, Chair, yeah, because you've now reminded me of another thing. So we've completely derailed the agenda. But yes, I think the other thing that I know we briefly talked about it this morning, but I think not just do we need to be looking at whether we do have a diverse senior leadership in a corporate officer level, but I wonder as well what more we can do as a local authority to encourage people of more diverse backgrounds to stand to be councillors, because I think that is deeply important. I think we can all accept that as a council of elected members, we don't have the most diverse group of councillors currently. Sometimes that's how it goes. So, people of different backgrounds don't necessarily win their seats. But I really hope that we can do more and look for opportunities to encourage people within our communities to consider whether they want to take on this excellent, exciting, brilliant role of being a local authority councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Good. So could we take those back to Paul? Did you want to come back in, Leader?
Yeah. Just to recognise, as we earlier recognised, role model and best practice in our education sector. It is of note that we have one of, I think, only a handful, sadly, but that one is here, a head teacher of one of our secondary schools, Brenturion Comprehensive School, Ravi Pawan. And apologies if I haven't pronounced his name correctly, but we have far too few leaders and indeed teachers in our secondary schools, and they're such important role models, aren't they, for our children and young people, because we know that the diversity of our communities are changing, because the diversity of our children is changing, but they need to see positive role models within their schools. So we obviously need to do more work around that, but it's also important to recognise that we are ahead in some respects in Bridgend, but we need to do a lot more work in that regard, and indeed work with those people that we do, those excellent people we have in Bridgend, like yourself, Chair, and use them as role models for other people, hopefully, to come forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, you're right. Role models are so important. Speaking with children, the impact that can have to have somebody Black standing up there as a good role model. And I think, like Councillor Winsley's just said about the curriculum being Black history being taught in school, and it would have a completely different delivery if it was delivered by a Black person who's experienced that history. Can I bring you in, Councillor Winsley?
So the other comment I was going to make, and it was partly on the same lines as Hugh, because I met Ravi yesterday at the SACRA meeting, was that we can look at our governors as role models, and whether we've got the same diversity there, because it'd be good to see a more diverse set of governors as well. And that might be a practical action that we can look at as an authority.
It's a really good point. Because that's how you can grow, can't you? Grow and get them into agencies. Great. Any other comments from anybody before I move to the recommendation? Can I take you to the recommendation then, please, members, and have well, we've had the moved and seconded.
With the amendment, Chair, that we now consider identifying leads within the organisation in advance of Welsh Government identifying their leads, and that work can start in advance, and then indeed in parallel, recognising that even when Welsh Government identify their leads, we're still going to need local leads and contact points across to directorates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Did you take that on board, Kirsty? Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So the report's been moved and seconded and agreed. Yep.
Well, that's that. Sorry, Chair. I've just
Yeah,
moved
with-
that
with-
as an
with the
amendment,
agreed.
so you need
Yeah,
to
happy
second the amendment, please.
Okay.
if you want.
Thank you. Good point. So amendment's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to the agenda item. I haven't had any urgent items reported to me. So that's it. Thank you very, very much. And I think, I look forward to the next meeting where we